Hello everyone, welcome to CSA Talks. My name is Duygu Demirdağ and today Ken Hughes will join us. We'll talk about the post-pandemic world and the consumers. Ken, thanks you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Hello, how are you today?
Lovely and really hot day, as I mentioned you before. And how is it there?
Well, I live in Ireland, where it is always cold. We live on the edge of Europe, both geographically and financially, let's face it. And so we get all that lovely wind from the Atlantic. So it's cold and grey, but we're safe. We have Guinness and whiskey, so we're okay.
Good luck with that. So the weather is as we used to know, but now we are reshaping our social norms and we are defining the new normal. And you're focusing on the concept of the captive economy. What is captive economy?
Yeah, I mean, when this started, so I'm a behavioralist. That's what I do. So I am fascinated by people, by anthropology, sociology, psychology, how the human mind works, how we make sense of the world. And with most of my clients, then I bring that to their business strategy and I help them shape their products, business and services for the future. So as a behaviorist, this is probably my most exciting time of my career because every single day there is the kind of change and excitement that we would take usually years to get to. So I was looking for a word to explain what we were going through. And, you know, we have the sharing economy, Airbnb and Uber, we have peer-to-peer economy. And so I was trying to find, and I started reading a lot of stuff about the psychology of captivity because I was trying to understand how people would be feeling locked down, you know, pushed away from business, pushed away from their family. And so I was doing a lot of work on captivity and looking at imprisonment and kidnapping and slavery and all those kind of things where we get our freedoms taken away. And yeah, the word captivity kept coming up. So I thought, well, that's kind of where we are. It's the captive economy. We're all living in this new world where we are captive in our own homes by choice, but that has huge implications for how we live, how we work, how we socialize, how we dream,
and also how we feel, maybe.
How we feel is huge, yeah. I mean, a lot of commerce, often people forget that there are humans involved. So a lot of my work with clients is trying to remind them that, you know, that you could talk about customer journeys, customer experience, brand mapping, brand strategy, but they often forget that there are people involved here. And if you can connect with people in an emotive, genuine, authentic way, you will win a customer for life. So what we've kind of been gifted here in this pandemic is an opportunity for businesses to connect with their customers in a completely new way, in a way that's led from the heart, not from the commercial profit realities. So really, there's huge opportunity. The Chinese write the word crisis with two characters, and one character represents danger, and the other character represents opportunity. I think that's a perfect way to look at crisis. Yes, of course, there's danger, but there's also huge opportunity. And that opportunity is everywhere around us. There are businesses now pivoting really quickly, trying to come up with new ways of doing things, new business models, entire new businesses based on the opportunities that have been given. One of my favorites, it's just a really simple one, was an animal sanctuary in California. So they have rescue animals. Most of their revenue comes from people paying tickets to come and visit the animals. But of course, that dried up. There was no revenue, there was no visitors. So how could they make money? And they looked at the world and they said, well, what do we have? Well, they said, well, we have animals. And what is all the world doing? Well, the world's all on Zoom, just like you and me are here. So everyone's on Zoom every day. What could we do? And they invented a product called Goat to Meeting, where you can hire an alpaca or a goat to appear in your Zoom call, like in the middle of a commercial Zoom call with maybe 5 or 6 people all at work. Suddenly this live goat pops up. Meh, meh. And, you know, it's just a novelty product, but it took off. And for $65, you can invite a goat or an alpaca to your meeting. And they are now busier with that product than they have ever been. They make more money than they ever made on ticket sales. So that's an example of a business getting creative, thinking, well, what do we have and what could we do? And that's every business's challenge now. You know, in this new captive economy, maybe the business you had wasn't fit for purpose anymore. Maybe you need to look at digitizing the business much more than you ever thought. Maybe you need to humanize the business much more than you ever thought. So huge challenges.
I'll check the Zoom meeting just after this Zoom meeting. This is interesting. And what do you think about the COVID-19 consumers? There's a new type of consumers. What's going to change for them? What's next for them?
Well, I mean, every country is in a different level, so it's kind of really interesting to watch this play out over the world. Sometimes we get an idea of what's going to happen. Fear is a really strong emotion. There's two emotions in the human body, really. There's fear and love, and everything else is a subset of that. So, you know, if you look at fear, anxiety, depression, anger, all these things come from fear. So we're scared. We're scared of going back to the old ways in case, you know, it happens again. But at the same time, the consumers are really hungry to grab their life back again. They want their old life back. So that's a really strong, powerful thing. And I think the businesses that offer the consumer something exciting to return to in a safe way will win. So we're seeing a lot of, again, creative ideas. As I looked at one in Germany yesterday. So think of a restaurant. It's really one of the big problems. So a restaurant might have 30 tables, and they need those 30 tables to make enough revenue to pay the business, to pay the staff and the rent and the operation cost. Whereas now with social distancing, they can only have maybe 15 tables. Now, how do you cope with that? Well, you have to obviously have a delivery service, have to have subscription services, takeaway, other things to make money. But even the physical restaurant, it will look pretty bad, won't it, with just empty tables? And I've seen a lot of pictures from China with tables just taped, you know, with signs and tape. And who wants to go to a restaurant with tape and signs on the table? And there was this restaurant in Germany that brought in, I loved it, they brought in 15 or 16 mannequins that you see in clothes shops. And they dressed them up in fantastic clothes, and they all sit at the empty tables in different positions. One guy proposing to his girl, one couple having a fight. And so they filled their restaurant with pretend people. And it looks fantastic. So there are ways that you can definitely, you know, address the fears of the new COVID consumer in a fun, profitable, creative way. So I think the consumer is ready to engage. They are. In fact, consumer spending has been down hugely, of course, during the pandemic. We haven't been going anywhere. So people actually have money to spend. They have a desire to get back to normal. So really it's up to us to make sure our businesses are ready for the next kind of 6-12 months.
So as you said, because of how we feel, now we have as consumers new values and new expectations from the industry. How these expectations will shape the brands and the industry overall? Yeah,
it's a really good question, because most of my work is involved in understanding values. Because actually, if you understand what people value, what they really care about, then it's very easy to bring a product or a service or a business to market in a relevant way. It's all about relevance in the end, you know, making sure that you stay relevant. So the new values of the COVID-19 captive consumer, first one is freedom and autonomy. So we like our freedom. You know, we live mostly in democracies. We like being able to make decisions every day. We can make big decisions like where I live, where I work, who I marry, who I live with. We can make small decisions, and we do every day. What sandwich will I have for lunch? Will I have another beer? You know, we make thousands of decisions every day. And what happened here was our decision making was taken away from us. We couldn't make those decisions, and we were kind of locked in our own homes. So we want control. As humans, we actually crave control. We like to control our environment. We like to know what's happening. I mean, and this is hardwired into our brains from, you know, caveman times. We like to understand our environment. We like to look for danger. So we now have a yearning for control, and the brands that understand that are starting to win. So you have something simple like a bank. So a bank that will write you a letter instead of waiting for you to come to them and ask about your loans and maybe restructuring your loans and taking a holiday from your mortgage payment. If they send you that letter first, or email, and say, look, COVID-19, you might have less income. You know, why don't you take a 6-month holiday from your loan? We have no problem, no paperwork. Just reply to this email, make it simple. That is giving you control, giving you the ability to breathe. It's making you feel more in control. So any brand that can help you regain freedom and control, that's a big one. The second one is attachment. When we get scared, and I talked about fear earlier on, let me put down my tea. When we get scared, we tend to attach ourselves to the things that are safe. So you think about even as a child, if a child gets scared, they jump into their mother or father's arms. You know, it's safe. And as adults now, we're looking for safe places too. and we're still scared. So any brand that gets the conversation right, we will emotionally attach to them. So there are brands that are doing nice things in their communities. There are brands that are really starting to kind of lead with the heart, and we're going to attach ourselves to those brands possibly for life. Again, a similar example, my broadband provider in the very beginning of the crisis contacted me about my broadband and said, we know you work from home. You're obviously going to need a lot more support now. So we're doubling your broadband capacity, and we're actually even lowering the price a little. So it was less price, more capacity. I was like, wow, that's fantastic. It was proactive. It was, and I'm now I'm attached to that brand now forever. So no matter what happens, their pricing, later on, I will always be a loyal brand advocate of that brand now, because I will remember that. One of the other values that's really important is community, and I'm sure you've seen that in Turkey too. The power of community has been huge. People have come together, and we see it all over the world. It's beautiful. People on their balconies, people socializing, people, communities, families coming together digitally. People who never spoke to their neighbors ever are now speaking to. It's beautiful. So brands are also able to step into that space. So we now value community. We value belonging. So as humans, we want to belong to a tribe. That's who we are as humans. And we have lots of tribes. We have our family tribe, our gym tribe, our work tribe. And at the moment, we feel like we don't belong. We want to belong to something bigger than just ourselves. We want to belong to be something bigger than just, you might have a family tribe that you've been living with now for 8 weeks, but you want to belong to something more than just your family tribe. So you try and replicate it on Zoom with some friends or business colleagues, but really you want more. So for brands that are stepping into the community space and really starting to give back to the community, they're not leading with commercial interest, and that's really important. Now is not the time to lead with profit and lead with, the greed. Now is the time to lead with heart. We'll lead with community. Trust me, the profit will come. This is a 12-month, a 24-month recovery, but the brands that are doing that well and leveraging that community value are doing very well. And then there's the digital step jump. Digital was growing anyway for the last 10, 15 years, but this is the biggest step jump that we will ever have in digital, probably, and it's the biggest non-technical step jump. Usually step jumps came with mobile phone and then Wi-Fi, and then we had big changes that were technical changes that made e-commerce faster, made connectivity faster. Social media, another one, big step jump. Whereas this is the most non-technological step jump. This is a behavioral step jump, where my 76-year-old mother is now doing online shopping, where my 71-year-old mother of one of my staff members is teaching people how to crochet over Zoom. And she's become a digital tutor at 71. How do you work this? What? So all this amazing digital spread is happening across all demographics, across all the world. So we will never be the same again, ever. And every single business now has to have a digital first mind, because we are now ultimately a digital society. And this pandemic has really kind of exploded that. So digital is a really big value. And then lastly, I think we need to talk about health. So health has become, really primary of concern. Again, we had a wellness trend that was always growing all over the world: eat healthy, physical exercise, all that kind of thing. But I think now health has moved front and center for lots of people. So any brand, doesn't matter what industry you're in, doesn't matter who you are as a business, you need to look at health as one of the lenses that you can kind of look through and think, well, what can I do to make consumers feel better about themselves? It can be mental health, physical health, nutrition. Health has become a really, really important part of it, of our life. And it will be now for the next 4 or 5 years. It'll be, obviously people liken this to 9/11 as a global kind of change incident. I think health is going to become a real concern and a real value, a consumer value for the next 4 or 5 years because of this.
Nowadays, this is my favorite question because it's really easy to ask, but not that easy to answer. What is your recovery roadmap for recovery? What do you see? Because we're talking about the next 4 and 5 years. This is huge, and we can't see what will happen next. So what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I made the vaccine last night in my bathroom. I have it here. I'm going to sell it. I don't know. It's a difficult question. I suppose it's the biggest question I'm asked on all my webinars at the moment. So my days usually I'm doing about 3-4 webinars every week. across all industries, pharmaceutical, technical, retail, every industry has the same question. What's the way out? Where are we going? And I think I've put it into three. I think that people firstly thought there was going to be some kind of V-shaped recovery, that there was going to be this collapse and then a sudden, bing, and we'd all be back to normal. And that's
like an economic crisis.
Yeah, exactly. Like a stock market graph. We'd have a collapse and then a return. The reality is we're going to have we had a very fast collapse, but the return is going to be very slow. It's going to be like a boat, like the shape of a boat. Yeah, so we will get there, but that long bottom is going to be 24 months, 12 months. It's not going to be like this. So, the vaccine, if it comes, will be next year probably for most of us. And so the new normal, the new social distancing and reopening the world, reopening the schools in September and all that kind of thing, it will happen, but it will be all a bit different for a while. So I've divided the recovery into three phases. So we have the now, the then, and the when. So the now is where we are right now. There's this collapse and it's all of us locked in, and some countries are now entering into the then phase, and the then phase is now, okay, the new normal. So you own a gymnasium and you had 20 spinning bikes in a classroom. You can only now have 8. You have a big gym floor full of equipment, so you have to take half of that equipment out now because every piece of equipment has to be 2 meters away from the next piece of equipment. And so that's the then that we have to deal with. The restaurants moving tables, and every business has a then. Okay, well, what do we do now? How do we cope with this new? And that's not going to be permanent, but it's going to be the reality for the next 12 months. And then, so same hotel, an airline, we all have to get our heads around the next 12 months. What's that going to look like? And then as we come out of that, we're into the when. When will this all go back to normal? And the businesses that do the then piece well will actually come out of the when quite strong and quite quickly. And the businesses that continue to do the same thing they've always done, blame other people, sit there and wait for everything to go back to normal, I don't think they'll ever get into the when, because they'll never make it out. They will finish. And interestingly, some businesses are talking about being in difficulty. And I think if you borrow the metaphor from the COVID-19, I think those businesses already had an underlying health issue. They will not make it out of this pandemic because they actually, going into the pandemic, had an underlying health issue. Something was already wrong in the business. Maybe the entrepreneur who's running the business wasn't creative enough. Maybe the business processes were too old. Maybe the technology was outdated. Maybe the business is no longer fit to purpose or relevant for consumers. Whatever. The businesses that will win from this pandemic will be the ones that will challenge what they do, look to the new consumer values, have a better understanding of what people now want, and are prepared and hungry to pivot the business and to go in different directions. They are the businesses that will win. And you know what? They're the businesses that should win in life in general. Businesses that are ready for change. Change will always happen. This is a pandemic. Before that, we had technology. Before that, there's always change. And businesses that perform well during times of change are the ones that adapt to their changing environment. There's a wonderful quote that says, if you stand still during times of rapid change, you move backwards. So just because you're standing still and you think, oh, I'll wait this out, but everything around you is changing so fast, you're actually moving backwards by standing still. So the only choice you have to do is to lean forward into the wind and just drive forward.
So I know that we will talk about the then phase, new normal, more from this day on. But this is lovely to hear that the old fellows, old friends will help us, like connection, attachment, or seeing the opportunity in the crisis. It was so lovely to hear that, and it was lovely listening to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Ken.
You're very welcome. I'll see you again live, hopefully soon, and definitely on webinar.
And I'll check the Zoom.
Do. Go to meeting. Have a great day. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.